Hello and welcome back to Bookish. Sorry if the lighting in here isn't very good. It is actually Saturday morning when I'm filming this. Sometimes I film these a day ahead so the light's better, but I didn't do it last night, and I'm up early with the dogs, even though today, of all days, they're not going to be in the room with me. Anyway, I just wanted to catch up on some bookish stuff, what I've been reading, what I've been thinking about on BookTube, stuff like that in general. So on Thursday, I posted my review of The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich, a book and a book that I really liked by an author that I really like. Again, I'm not sure that I think the book is a great book. I don't think it's as good as some of the other books by her that I've read, but I do really think it was good. And I do think I even think that in some ways, as an introduction, perhaps to Erdrich's writing and themes, it might not be too bad of a place to start. I also then, just this week, I finished Looking for Alaska by John Green. This year I decided to read more genre fiction, particularly in genres I don't normally read. YA is something I don't read at all. Having had a teenage daughter, it occurred to me that there's probably some YA books in the room. And sure enough, I found John Green's, many John Green books actually, but this is the one I decided to read, in part because I think this is the one that I knew the least about. I will say that the book is pretty well paced, and it was a somewhat enjoyable read. I do think that Green's writing is somewhat full of cliches. Nerdy boy from one school goes to new school and is like miraculously becomes cool and hip, and even though he claims to be uncomfortable with people and girls, everything he says to every girl that he talks to seems to be relatively perfect. I'm not saying he doesn't have awkward or weird moments, but he falls in love with troubled, beautiful, unattainable girl. Maybe this is just, a YA trope in general, but this is the only John Green book I've read. I have seen Paper Towns, a movie made from a John Green book, which seems to have a fairly similar plot, and I believe, if anything, even The Fault in Our Stars has a plot in which there's a young woman character is somewhat unobtainable or inaccessible or unknowable. Anyway, I thought it was fine. I'm not gonna diss on it too bad. I don't know that I expected much more than I got. I also finished reading the first book that I read as a part of my goal to read some of the books from the Republic of Consciousness prize list, and that is, I read We Are Made of Diamond Stuff. Now, I'm way behind on this. I think they've already given away the Republic of Consciousness prize, which is a prize given to small presses for the books they publish. This is the first one of the 3 or 4 books from that list that I bought that I read. It's very short. It was only like 110 pages, 105 pages long, and so I just thought I'd throw a real quick review of this in here. This book kind of lampoons Great Britain as it exists right now. Maybe it's satire. It feels more just like lampooning to me. It's just kind of a send-up of all these kind of things about British society that obviously the author thinks are tragic, funny, wrong, such as, just the attitude that leads to Brexit, Great Britain's overinflated thinking or thoughts about itself today as compared to its past, its treatment of immigrants, its class system. All those things are kind of, I think, the subject of this book and what this book, the point this book is trying to make. It's framed as a story about a middle-aged, really, immigrant woman who meets with a second-generation man, and they work together at a decaying, no-star hotel on the Isle of Wight. And I think that location was chosen to kind of focus on the idea of the decaying British idea of itself and concept of itself, which didn't strike me as particularly clever or new, really. the book is written cleverly. There's a lot of wordplay and syntax and creative spelling. It's an incredibly, and I think self-consciously hip book with references over and over again to Stranger Things. The sci-fi television series Stranger Things is kind of referred to here a lot. And maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I'm not British enough, but in some ways I just thought that the book was just silly. There's some clever things. I will tell you that reading it was not unpleasant in terms of reading the word on the page and trying to kind of keep up with the ideas in the book. It helped that it was relatively short. I don't think it could have gone on reading it for much longer than I did. But what struck me is how self-consciously, I don't know, how self-consciously hip it is, how self-consciously clever it tries to be. And in the end, the points it tries to make about all these subjects, class, treatment of immigrants, England's image of itself, the foolishness of Brexit. But when the author wants to make those points, the cleverness goes away, and she just says things directly. She just says directly about how foolish Brexit is, and she just says directly things about divisions within the LGBTQ plus community, and so it isn't even really satire. It's just this kind of funny, satirical, lampooning look at ridiculousness maybe of British society in and around Brexit, which ceases to be clever, funny when it wants to make its points. I don't know. To me, it just didn't really work. I realized that what I said might not make much sense, and not only didn't work, I didn't think it was particularly original. There are echoes of Clockwork Orange here, and echoes of Juna Barnes, I thought, and Fawlty Towers, and The Life of Brian, or Monty Python's movie The Life of Brian, in the scene where they're all at the Colosseum and they're talking about all the factions that exist within the resistance movements to Roman rule. I just thought it was, too clever by half and a little bit too impressed with itself to be a particularly good book. So other things I wanted to talk about this week, just kind of BookTube things. One is these videos that I found. I ran across videos on BookTube called Read With Me videos. I don't know if you've ever seen these videos or not, but essentially the booktuber just sits in a chair on a couch, points the camera at themselves, and they read silently for, 30, 45 minutes. And I saw that Una and Crypto over at the Codex Cantina had kind of poked some fun at this idea of these Read With Me videos, and so I thought, well, these are just going to be ridiculous. But I thought I have nothing to do but lay around and watch BookTube videos, and I thought, well, I'll look up some of these Read With Me videos, and I did. And I have to tell you that while I do think that they are on the whole silly, there's a certain comfort to it, and I can see the appeal of the video, of those kind of videos, of just watching someone read a book as being similar to the appeal of sitting in a room with someone who's reading a book, and you're both kind of reading at the same time. I will admit, I found it relatively relaxing, and it felt like company. And it had that kind of feeling you've had. I don't know if you've ever had a friend or been in a relationship with somebody and you just sat around reading books, but there's a certain pleasure in that. And so while at first I was skeptical, and I largely still am, I will say I do see the appeal, I think, in terms of comfort and that kind of feeling. In addition to that, there's some other things that I've been watching on BookTube this week. I just want to draw your attention to two series. One is the in-depth discussion of the book Cleanness that Sarah at Hardcover Hearts and Leo from Little Book Life and Dan from the Weird Book Club are having. That's not a book I've read. It's probably not a book I'm going to read, I don't think, but their discussion of it has been really interesting. And what they do is that they all three have read the book, and then they make a series of videos in which one person asks the next people questions about the book, and they discuss the book. And I found all three of the videos out about that to be really interesting and fascinating, and get three people's takes on that book, which has been somewhat controversial. And then also I want to draw your attention to sonnet reading. I follow Patrick Stewart on Twitter, and every day he's, I think during his lockdown, he's read one of Shakespeare's sonnets. I think he's reading the numerical order. And, you know, I would tell you that one of our own booktubers is doing something similar. TooTight Latrec has, I think, the Shaky Sonnet, I can't remember exactly what it calls it, but it's the Shaky Sonnet Studio. He reads and discusses one of Shakespeare's sonnets, and the videos are funny, and they're amusing, and they're also really informative. So I'll leave a link to TooTight Latrec's channel down below, and I'll leave a link to the channels of the people discussing cleanness in their videos down below. So if you haven't checked those out, you can find them. Anyway, there you go. There's my Saturday hodgepodge for today. Hope everybody stays safe and is doing all right. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.